Probably my favourite poet is the great MacGonagall, officially William Topaz MacGonagall, or as he called himself, Sir William Topaz MacGonagall, of the Order of the White Elephant of Burma. And he was a 19th century Scottish poet, sometimes called the worst poet who ever lived, but I really don't think that's fair. He was fanatical about making everything rhyme, and I can't really see what else you could ask for in a poet. He was a blue ribbon man which is to say he was very opposed to drinking alcohol, and, as the man himself said, the first man to throw a plate of peas at me was a publican, because of the ire he raised with pub landlords, which are a rather undesirable class of people. He was a handloom weaver from his youth, and at one point even emigrated to America before returning back to Scotland, due to a lack of economic success. Until one day, as he put it, the most startling incident in my life was the time I discovered myself to be a poet, which was in the year 1877. And I personally think, although his most famous poem is almost certainly the Tay Bridge disaster, a sequel to his earlier poem about the triumphant building of the Tay Bridge, I think his greatest work was Calamity in London, and that's what I'm going to read today. 'Twas in the year of 1897, and on the night of Christmas Day, that 10 persons' lives were taken away by a destructive fire in London at number 9 Dixie Street. Alas, so great was the fire, the victims couldn't retreat. In Dixie Street, number 9, it was occupied by 2 families, who were all quite happy, and sitting at their ease. One of these was a labourer, David Barber, and his wife, and a dear little child he loved as his life. Barber's mother and 3 sisters were living on the ground floor, and in the upper 2 rooms lived a family who were very poor, and all had retired to rest on the night of Christmas Day, never dreaming that by morning their lives would be taken away. Barber got up on Sunday morning to prepare breakfast for his family, and a most appalling sight he then did see, for he found the room was full of smoke, so dense indeed that it nearly did him choke. Then fearlessly to the room door he did creep, and tried to arouse the inmates who were asleep, and succeeded in getting his own family out into the street, and to him the thought thereof was surely very sweet. And by this time the heroic Barber's strength was failing, and his efforts to warn the family upstairs were unavailing, and before the alarm was given the house was in flames, which prevented anything being done after all his pains. Oh, it was a horrible and heart-rending sight, to see the house in a blaze of lurid light, and the roof fallen in and the windows burnt out. Alas, 'tis pitiful to relate, without any doubt. Oh heaven! 'Tis a dreadful calamity to narrate, because the victims have met with a cruel fate. Little did they think they were going to lose their lives by fire, on that night when to their beds they did retire. It was some time before the gutted house could be entered in. Then to search for the bodies the officers in charge did begin, and the horrifying spectacle met their gaze, which made them stand aghast in a fit of amaze. Some time before the firemen arrived, 10 persons of their lives had been deprived by the choking smoke and merciless flame, which will long in the memory of their relatives remain. Oh heaven! It was a frightful and pitiful sight to see. 7 bodies charred of the Jarvis family, and Mrs. Jarvis was found with her child, and both carbonized, and as the searchers gazed thereon, they were surprised. And these were lying beside the fragments of the bed, and in a chair the 10th victim was sitting dead. Oh horrible, what a sight to behold, the charred and burnt bodies of young and old. Good people of high and low degree, oh think of this sad catastrophe, and pray to God to protect you from fire, every night before to your beds ye retire. And I particularly like how it's got a nice little moral message on the end there. You should always be careful about fire. It really is very important indeed. And he came up with, well, he was a very prolific writer who published 3 books of poetry, and performed in public on a regular basis. He was also a dramatician, or tragedian, who performed as Macbeth, and on one occasion actually innovated a little bit by refusing to die in case the actor playing Macduff should upstage him, and that was after he had paid to play as Macbeth, so I think he'd earned that right. And that is all we have to say about Sir William Topaz MacGonagall.